Okay, I can show you better than I can tell you. 10 minutes before this meeting even got started, I'm live here in Barrio Logan, where if you take a look behind me, so we want to remind everyone that Gilman Drive is closed until they wrap up their efforts right here. So let's take a look at the numbers. In 2023, those evacuation warnings in this area have also been lifted, so that's good news. I talked to Mayor Wells before today's city council meeting got started, and he told me he thought this was a done deal 2 weeks ago. Now you can see that full resolution, the statement to the Attorney General and his response on our website, CBS8.com. Reporting for CBS 8, I'm Keristen Holmes. Back to you.
CBS 8's Keristen Holmes talked with a mom and her daughter who are homeless right now and joins us live with more. Keristen.
Yeah, I'm here in the East Village of downtown San Diego, near Father Joe's Villages, a resource and shelter for those experiencing homelessness. Like you said, Carlo, I talked to a mom and her daughter who say they moved to San Diego back in 2022 and they had a place in Chula Vista, but when the rent got too expensive, they had to move out. What is it like to live this life?
It's hard. It's rough on everybody, actually. It's ruthless out here.
Asha and her mom Janet say this isn't the life they chose. Some nights, they have to sleep in their tent.
They would stop and they would throw eggs at us. And they would throw rotten milk at us. They would actually mix the egg and the milk and they would throw them at us. And it'd be really cold, so you just gotta have a lot of blankets. And there's usually other homeless people around that will assist and help us. We're lucky. We're lucky because compared to a lot of other homeless people, they have one blanket.
Lately, they say they've been lucky enough to have a shelter bed, but they had to be separated from Asha's brother, Janet's son, because he has to stay somewhere else.
God is answering the cries of the poor. We should not be homeless. The people you see on these streets should not be homeless.
The shelters are full. We need more shelter beds.
City Council member Stephen Whitburn volunteered for the annual point-in-time count in Hillcrest. He says he saw fewer people sleeping on the streets early Thursday morning.
I heard from a couple others they're not interested in a shelter bed. They weren't aware of the safe sleeping sites that we have, the safe campsites.
Karina Hernandez is with Homestart. They focus their efforts in El Cajon. Karina says the count also conducts a survey asking questions about substance abuse, disabilities, health issues, and how long one has experienced homelessness.
If they completed the survey, they were allowed to get a $10 gift card. And then if they didn't want to be interviewed by someone who was collecting the data, they were just tallied so that they could be included in the count.
Asha and Janet say besides the clothes on their back and what they have in their backpacks, they and others like them rely on their faith in God to get them through when the generosity of people falls short.
They're left on the side of the road, Nobody's helping them in the way that they need to actually be helped. They're left to their own devices. They're left to die on the streets. And nobody cares. I see people in wheelchairs all the time that has no family and have nobody helping them. Who is supposed to help that person in the wheelchair?
So let's take a look at the numbers. In 2023, San Diego County saw more than 10,200 people experiencing homelessness. In 2024, that number rose to more than 10,600 people living on our streets. You can find this data on our website, CBS8.com. Reporting for CBS 8, I'm Keristen Holmes. Back to you. I'm live here in Barrio Logan, where if you take a look behind me and through that gate, that is where the old Vault PK was. Now, I talked to a couple of moms and a high school freshman at the time who's now a grad student, and they all say they deserve better from MTS, who owned the building then and still own it now. Now, we have video of that collapse, and we're going to show it to you, but I got to warn you, it may be pretty difficult to watch.
My son thought that I was dead. I kind of woke up to him saying, Mom, you got to get up, you got to get out.
Julie Blair was just one of the dozens of people who were hurt Friday night, November 11th, 2017, when this wooden landing she and others were standing on collapsed.
I was sitting opposite Veronica and I fell forward. So I fell on my face. That's why I cracked my skull and got a concussion, and I was bleeding, and my son was sitting next to me. He had a big gash on his face. Veronica's children, they were crying, and then I saw that Veronica couldn't even move. it was so scary and just there were kids and plywood and metal everywhere.
And I just remember like the sheer panic of like landing, and like there was kids under me, there were kids like on top of me, and just like everybody scrambling trying to get out. There being like kind of blood all over like our legs, and it was like dripping on the floor as we're like running around trying to be like, oh my gosh, where's mom, where's mom?
Julia Doyle Ubel is a grad student at UC Davis right now, but in 2017 she was a high school freshman and a gymnast who was also hurt. Julia's mom, Veronica, was there too.
Because I was on the platform and fell straight down, 10 feet straight down onto my butt, I broke my left wrist and I fractured my T9 vertebrae. In my back, I have, screws and rods to fix my spine.
Court documents say on November 11th, 2017, one of MTS's tenants ran a Groupon promotion to attract even more people to the warehouse. That was at the time Vault PK, a gym that was subleasing space from San Diego Sports Entertainment Center, who was renting the space from MTS. The victims we talked to say the subleases and lack of responsibility adds insult to their injury.
You have to do things right. You have to do things safe. You cannot put other people's lives at risk just to do something cheap.
We reached out to MTS for comment on this story, and they say they cannot comment on pending litigation. But in earlier stories, MTS told CBS 8 that they leased out the space as is to San Diego Sports Entertainment. This case heads back to court on Monday. Reporting for CBS 8, I'm Keristen Holmes. Back to you. Good evening. Now, I talked to Mayor Wells before today's City Council meeting got started, and he told me he thought this was a done deal 2 weeks ago after it was voted down. But then he says another City Council member made some changes to the resolution, and they both brought it back before the City Council today.
What's different this time is I offered an amendment to the mayor to see if we could get this passed, because all of us agree we're not a sanctuary city.
El Cajon City Council member Steve Goebel says his goal is to make sure law enforcement is protected.
But if we're going to talk about using our police officers to the extent allowed by law, I want to make it very clear that we have their backs. And so I am asking for an amendment to seek indemnification from the U.S. Attorney General's office for anything that we might do lawfully in the course of duties.
I think that they should vote with their heart the way they did the prior time, which is listen to their constituents, reject an anti-immigrant resolution that would impact people who live in El Cajon and people who do business in El Cajon.
Pedro Rios with the American Friends Service Committee and a group of protesters met at noon on Tuesday to raise their concerns about the resolution at the heart of El Cajon's City Council meeting. The wording says it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of El Cajon declaring the city's commitment to ensure the public safety of all residents and asserting the city's intent to comply with federal immigration law to the legal extent permissible for the sole purpose of removing violent criminals from our community. It goes on to say the city will seek indemnification from the U.S. Attorney for actions taken by El Cajon's police officers. Goebel says that means this time the resolution protects police. Rio says he's still against the new amendment.
There probably has been some strong arming taking place. Maybe the mayor was getting his council members to fall in line and suggesting that if they don't, then maybe they'll have political backlash from people that support them.
57% of the people that live in El Cajon voted for Donald Trump just a couple months ago. They knew exactly where Donald Trump stood on immigration. That was the hallmark of his campaign. So I think if you really want to look at what the people think, they think that immigration needs to be reformed.
Now, it is a packed house inside of the City of El Cajon's City Council chamber with people on both sides of the issue in line waiting to speak out and let their voices be heard. Now, we've also heard that threatening voice messages have been sent to some elected officials here in the City of El Cajon. When I asked Mayor Wells about that, he says that does happen from time to time on issues like this, but he does not support or condone that type of activity. We'll keep you posted on how the vote turns out. Reporting for CBS 8, I'm Keristen Holmes. Back to you.